It is my pleasure to host today one of the flipped classroom experts of Łódź University of Technology, Kemi Ogunyemi. Hello and welcome.
Thank you.
So I would like to ask you at first, what is your experience with flipped classroom model?
I've used it a lot with my students. I teach the MBA mostly, executive MBA and full-time MBA at my school in Lagos in Nigeria. And it's been an interesting journey trying to flip the classroom. My experience is that it's a very creative way of engaging the students, and it helps them to learn a lot faster and also to apply their learning, which is very good for actually retaining what they have learned and being able to use it later in life.
And what are the challenges that students and teachers come across while using the flipped classroom model?
I think the main challenge is the unfamiliarity of the model and the extra work that it demands from teachers and students. So for the teachers, very often it means that they have to change the way they have been teaching before. And when that happens, because you don't actually have extra time to allocate to your work, it can look like, why do I need to stress myself to redesign my classes in order to achieve flipped learning? So sometimes that's a thing because it looks like you need a lot of extra time, but really it's not that bad. Once you start, you yourself get excited by it, and then it becomes easier because you're doing the same things over and over again, but in different ways. And the other challenge can be the assessment, because it also takes a bit more effort to assess what has been taught through flipped learning. For students, the challenge is similar, but from the other side of the spectrum, because many students are used to learning in a different way. So they're used to going to class and having the teacher just tell them what they need to know and to be examined on exactly those things. But when you use the flipped classroom, it gives the students a lot of freedom to learn on their own and then come to class and make that learning more solid by exchanging their ideas with other students and having some validation also from the teacher. So sometimes they get taken aback at the latitude that flipped learning provides, and they see that they have to do a lot of work before they come to class, and they cannot just be passive in the learning experience. So sometimes that can be challenging, but at the same time, really, students tend to like it more than just going to class and receiving lectures.
And so do you think that students are ready to take up this responsibility, and how do you help them not to feel lost at the beginning?
So I think they're ready, because really the principles behind the flipped classroom are already being practiced by most of the students in their life outside of the classroom, because very often using the flipped method means getting the students to engage with technology before they come into class. And to also exchange ideas with one another. And they already do that in their normal life. They engage a lot with technology, they do blogs, vlogs, and then they interact with one another. So what they're just trying to do is to make them use this to learn as well. So I think they're ready, but at the same time, because they're not used to having that as a form of formal learning, it can be a bit daunting at the beginning. So the way to help them to get used to it and to see how it works in the classroom, I think the best is to be very specific in the guidelines that one gives to the students. So for example, if they have to watch a video before the class, it's better not to just say, watch this video. It's better to say, to give instructions, watch this video and look out for 1, 2, and 3 things. So then the student is guided and they're able to prepare, and later on they get into the rhythm themselves.
And could you give us some more examples of pre-class activities that students have to prepare? Okay,
so this one of the video can be very helpful. So if, for example, you want to teach about team building, you could get videos that are already on the internet about team building, ask them to watch it and give them specifics to watch out for. So for example, there are different stages of forming a team, and you could ask them, look out for the different stages and tell me your own personal experience of working in a team and seeing those things happen. You could also do a video yourself as the teacher explaining some of the principles, and then you ask them to read about the principles, watch your video, and prepare some answers that they can discuss in the classroom. But you could also do things that challenge the students to make videos themselves. So you could, for example, ask them to find out on the internet about a major event, a current event happening around the world, and make like a 1 minute or 2 minute video of their own reflections on that world event. And when they do that, if you have a learning platform, you can have them post their video on the learning platform and comment on 1 or 2 videos posted by their classmates. So in that way, they learn, they do the video, so they reflect on their own learning, and then they also interact with the videos of other students, and that expands their minds before they come to class. Another example could be getting them to interview other people on a topic. So for example, we've all passed through the pandemic experience, and if you want to incorporate that into the classroom, you could have a concept. Maybe you want to discuss the future of work, and then you could ask the students, can you look for 1 or 2 people, whether in your extended family or in your neighborhood, and interview them about their experience working during the pandemic and what they expect for the future of work. And then the students will do those interviews, and then they can come to class and discuss it with one another.
Right, so like something from the life experience.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And how about the methods of assessment? Are they different than in regular class? At what stage should students be assessed? How does this work?
Okay, they're different because they are wider. Because of the freedom that you give to the students in the flipped learning method, you have to make the rubrics wider to be able to capture the wide variety of what the students will bring in. Because this method of the flipped classroom is actually enriches the student learning more than when you're just doing a rote learning that depends only on what the lecturer brings to class. So when it's only what I say to the students in class, maybe it's easier for me to assess whether they learned what I said, because there's it's limited to whatever I manage to transmit in the classroom. But with the flipped learning model, the students are getting a lot of learning from many other sources, and they're interacting with that knowledge in different ways. So that means that the assessment has to be more wide-based. I don't know exactly how to express that, but it just means that the lecturer has to be also more creative in assessing. At the same time, the assessment model hasn't totally changed from the traditional. So it's still very useful to have formative assessments and to have summative assessments. When you have formative assessments, it means that during the program, you're already having assessment interventions whereby you check whether the student is learning in between, and therefore you're able to give feedback. So you can do that whenever you have students making presentations in class, whether they do individual presentations or they do group presentations. You just prepare your rubrics that already you can even share with the students in advance so that they know what you're looking out for. So if, for example, with the assignment that I gave an example of earlier, I have asked the students to do interviews and to put their knowledge together, either in groups or to present them individually in class, then I should tell them what I'm looking for in their presentation. So I would have told them in the instruction about the assignment that when you come back, you need to send me maybe a Word document or 500 words about your experience or what you learned from the assignment. So then I make rubrics to match what I want to see in that submitted assignment. Or I could tell them, I need you to present this in class. You're going to have 5 minutes, and I'm going to be looking out for the depth of your reflection, the scope of your carrying out the assignment, your creativity in presenting the knowledge you learned. So I can tell them already it will be 2 marks for this, 3 marks for this. And then in that case, I can give them feedback immediately they do the presentation in class. Either immediately in the class so that other students learn, or by email. I can do a general email to all the students saying the presentations today were like this. Many of you did well in this. I think the general things that you all need to do better are number 1, number 2, and number 3. So like that, they all improve. And I think that's important in any, whether it's a traditional method or it's a flipped classroom. It's always good to give students assessment in between so that they know how they're doing and they can improve. But then at the end of the program, yes, you also still need to do the summative assessment as to how the course went. And you can design it in different ways. They can do a project. It can be as a group, but usually by the time you're doing summative assessments, you actually need individual assessments. So it can be an individual project as well. And it can also be the regular traditional exam method, but the questions should be aligned with the taxonomy. The Bloom's taxonomy is actually one of the standard ways to design assessments, to plan learning and also to design assessments. So you're watching out for how they apply what they've learned during the course, or how they are able to analyze and evaluate, or how creative they can be in generating new ideas from what they have learned. You want me to give you a specific example again?
I think that's fine.
That's fine.
I was
Okay.
also wondering, so they actually get a specific mark for their work at the end?
Yes.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
Right.
They do.
Okay. So my last question would be, how would you encourage teachers to actually take up this challenge?
Okay.
To
so
teach in the flipped
to teach in the
classroom
flipped-
model, yeah.
I would say, I think the best motivator for making the change is to think about the students. Because the way students learn is different, because the way the world runs has changed quite a bit. So the exposure of the current generation of students to the sources of learning is different from the old ones. So if we continue with the traditional method, we may keep on repeating things that students have access to learn in other ways, especially through the internet. And then we may not be adding as much value in the classroom as we could. Whereas if we change to the flipped learning model, then they can use all those other sources before they come to class. And then there's much more value in their interaction with the teacher and in the interaction with one another in the classroom, because we're able to build on what they already have. And the second reason, also related to the student learning, is that what the workplace demands nowadays has also changed. You know, students have to go out of the university already empowered to be able to work in the workplace of today. And it's not really about being able to reel out a list of facts or make definitions or explain things. It's about being able to interact with others, their peers, in teamwork, to think creatively, to design solutions, to solve problems. So using the flipped classroom model is actually a better preparation for that kind of capability at work than the traditional model. So, and I think any teacher, what we really want is for the students to learn. So
Yeah.
it's a worthwhile thing to make the change.
So that should definitely encourage them.
I think so. I think so,
Okay.
because deep down, teachers care about their student learning.
Right.
The fear would be that it takes a lot more work, and I would say just keep it simple.
Okay.
The flipped classroom, sometimes, in fact, teachers are already using some principles of the flipped classroom, and they don't realize it.
They don't realize,
Yeah,
right,
so
okay.
sometimes it looks like, oh, there's this big thing I need to do, but maybe not. It's
Maybe
just settle down, understand the principles, and keep it simple. And then gradually you get used to doing things in that way as well.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the talk, and I wish you good luck with the flipped classroom model. And thank you very much.
Thank you too. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.